Welcome to this class of Oracle class for Monday, February the 20th. Yet more, even more stories of the secret city. We're glad to have everyone with us this morning, and I have muted you as I brought you on. So if you want to say anything, please just unmute yourself and chime in. We do want to have interactions. We want to have you to ask questions, either of the two folks that I have today or myself. We want you to ask questions as we go along. So let me bring you a little bit up to speed before we start. Again, you know who I am, so I don't need to waste any time on that. Uh, and you know that we're having folks join us each time. Today, we've got Carla Mullins of the Oak Ridge History Museum, and we've got Mike Stello of the Oak Ridge Public Library. And we'll get started on that. And then after we finish there, I have some upcoming events that I want to share with you about that some things that are happening real soon. I don't know who I don't have muted, so please mute yourself so we don't have your coughing. I understand. Okay, let's go with Carla is going to be our first one. So Carla, would you go ahead and share your screen, and we will get an update on the Oak Ridge History Museum.
Alrighty.
And remember, I'm serious now. It's okay to interrupt Carla. If you have a question that you want to ask her about what she's talking about, just feel real confident to do that.
Yes, please. Okay. So hello, everybody. I am with the Oak Ridge History Museum, one of the co-directors. And I thought since we're in Black History Month that and some of our new events coming up are related to that we would take a quick look at some photos from Ed Westcott concerning life in the hutments, life in the for Blacks when they first came to Oak Ridge back in 1943. And to start with, I wanted to say that we have if you haven't been to the museum in a while, we have a couple of displays that are new to the museum, but not necessarily new to Oak Ridge. So one of them is on loan, we have an exhibit on Black workers during the Manhattan Project that is on loan from the Park Service. And it's on display in the back of the museum near the Ed Westcott Gallery. So some of those photos you may have seen before, some of them not. And then also we are going to be having a ribbon cutting ceremony for our hutment that we had replicated in the back of the museum. So it's a building behind the museum. So we've been using the photos that Ed took and other input from the Black community from family members of what was actually in the hutment and during that time. And part of our contract with getting this hutment constructed was that we would emphasize the experience of the Black women that were brought to Oak Ridge to work on the project in different aspects. So when you come to the museum and you see that exhibit, you're going to be a little bit immersed in what their experience was like living in these 16 by 16 foot hutments. So as you go through, that's kind of what I want to take from my part of this presentation is how did they feel? What was their experience like? When you walk into the hutment, right now it's cold, and as it would have been then, although they did have heaters in there that were coal furnaces or oil furnaces, and we have replications of those. They were stoves, actually, not furnaces. I shouldn't say that. And so you get a real feel for what that's like to be in those conditions during the cold weather. So So I'm going to just start this by saying thank you for letting me make this presentation. So the hutments, again, were 16 by 16 plywood construction. The hutments for the construction workers and for the Black construction workers and for the Black women that were brought in to do, most of them were working in support areas such as custodial work. They worked in the cafeterias and all the kind of support work that was what was needed for life in the early part of the Manhattan Project. So these three ladies are, we don't know if they all shared the same hutman or not. Generally, it was 4 to 6 people in a hutment, and which would have been very cramped if they had more than 4. I'm sorry. Somebody have a question? Okay. So these ladies were obviously, just like probably anybody during that time, you know, just hanging out together after they'd had a day and putting their laundry out and just talking with one another, just being part of each other's lives. So as we move on, this is kind of a famous one too that you might see when you come in the museum. If you note that all of the hutments, just as all the housing in Oak Ridge, had number designations on them, which was good because they all looked alike and you had to know where you were going when you came back from whatever you were doing. So it was really important to have those numbers written on the housing. And as you know, everything went up so fast, it was easy for people to get lost or confused when they first started coming back to whatever housing they were in. So here's a woman that's been, it looks like she's probably been cleaning in the hutman and has placed everything from the inside on the outside. And this picture gave us a pretty good sketch of what we might want to include inside our hutman. So you might see some of these items in the hutman when you come to visit. And one of the areas I know had, I think the areas where the Black hutments were located, Happy Valley, the town site had a few, I don't think very many, but the majority were over kind of in the where the woodland area is, upper Scarborough area. And they had a rec hall, and the rec hall just was a big facility that kind of housed everything that they did as a community. So one of the things you might see here is a post office. And then you see the lady on the left getting some fresh bedding for the hutman. So this is kind of where everything happens. So you'll see a few more pictures in here of that facility too and how it was used. So this is gathering in the recreation hall. Now, the Manhattan Project was careful about making sure that living in the facility or inside those gates was still community oriented. And so each different living area, the Jackson Square, Jefferson, and all the different areas around Oak Ridge as people were coming into work, had these community centers for each one of them. This is the rec hall in the Black community, and you can see they're all gathered for, I'm not sure what, but this was men and women together, so it could have been a church activity or something like that, some dinner after that. They're rather dressed up. So this picture I thought was kind of fun because it demonstrates, like, here's the guys hanging out together after work. They're playing cards. There's one gentleman there in the center in the back that's got his boxing gloves on. He's kind of leaning up against the pole. And you can see in the very back, there's a boxing, whatever they call it. I should know what that is, but in the back. So this is a true picture of a recreation hall and them all gathering and having some fun there too. So if you notice on the right-hand side, I believe this is a picture of the rec hall where the 2 cars are parked in front of it. And then the 2 buildings on the left, it's the one in the middle I was intrigued by because there's curtains hanging in the windows there of this little hutman. So it's been spruced up. And I'm thinking that's probably a place for the women to gather to get their hair done, maybe just to kind of have a little time together in a more feminine sort of way. And I'm not sure about the building on the left, but part of the reason I wanted to pull this in, because if you notice in the background, you'll see some hutments. And then as we go through the slides, this is another view of that picture. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a little transportation building. I think there was probably a place where they got on the bus there. In the back, you can see the hutments. And on the back to the left is that large building, the rec hall. And then you can see the little house, the little building with the curtains, steps coming down from it, and then the other one. So this was a community center area for the Blacks in this hutment community. And Ray or Mike, if you know any more about that and you want to speak up, you can. I've been kind of piecing through these a little bit as we look for pictures for our display, but.
You're doing fine. Go right ahead.
Okay. So this picture zooms out on what we just saw. So if you look at the large buildings towards the front of this picture, you can see another view of that. And the way I pieced that together was the somewhat medium-sized large building that sits parallel to the hutments there, the darker one, looks like the rec center. And then you can see kind of the little building, little hutment with the windows and the curtains, and then the one sitting next to it. You kind of get a different perspective on what this was and where this was. So this particular picture is on one of the murals in the Ed Westcott murals that came out of the AMSI originally, and we replaced them in our Midtown Community Center, the Oak Ridge History Museum. We have these big murals up, and we also have Don Honeycutt's voice narrating over it, so with descriptions of these. But this particular hutment area was all the Black community. And in the picture, you can't see it too clearly, but over to the very right, there's the Mount Zion Baptist Church. There's a tree kind of in front of it in this picture, but that church was moved into where the Scarborough area is now. So it's the original church and was moved. And so this whole area, as described to me, was kind of in partly woodland area, partly up from where Scarborough is now. So it's not in that exact location, but it's close to that. You can also see a farmhouse down towards the front. Farmhouses were all, the farmhouses that weren't having to take down because of the project or the areas they were in were all used by different managers and when they came into to work on the city. So this is just another picture of what it, wintertime in the hutments, all closed up tight. And I'm not exactly sure which road this was. I don't know if this was out in Happy Valley or if this was in the area you just saw, but you can kind of see how, they were there to do work and they got on with it. But these were temporary structures and not very attractive, and then I love this picture because, we have so many people that, just gather for whatever reason. I don't know what they were dressed up a little bit. So I'm guessing it was they were either waiting for a bus to go back to Knoxville for some reason, or they just had been to church together. But you can see there's, it's about a 2-to-1 ratio of men to women. And they were, dressed for some event, but I really like the pictures that show the community. And we have a lot of pictures of Oak Ridge in their communities. And this is another one. I think it's a neat gathering picture. So I think that's the end of my presentation on this. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead and stop your share.
Okay. Here we go.
And get this on. Any questions for Carla? Just unmute yourself and speak up.
Hi, Carla, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Rose.
Hi. I'm wondering, I have been to the museum. I love it. It gives you such a feel for the life of these people and what their furnishings were like and stuff. And I know that there's a small fee to get into it. Do you have anything like a yearly membership or something like that so that you can take in some of the extra displays? Like, I didn't know that Black History might have a Hutman just for the month.
Oh, okay. So the Hutment's going to be, it's a permanent display, but
good.
so you can come anytime and see that. And we do, yeah, so our fee right now is $10 a person per time. But if you join the Oak Ridge Historical Preservation Association, you can come free anytime. So you just have to show them your card when you come in. So, and then also if you've come and seen it, and we can give you a pass to come back. So like if you can't see everything on a particular time that you come, you can get a pass from us, and we'll be happy to let you come back in and keep on looking. Because sometimes people will come and they'll, we'll be closing at 2, say, and they'll come at 1:30, and there's no way you can see that museum and do it justice in a half an hour. So we'll generally stay. Our volunteers are generally happy to stay and let people finish their tour if they come, such as that. But we really want to encourage people to come and learn the history. So we're pretty flexible about that sort of thing. But Rose, if you come back, and I'll give you a pass back in so you can see it. On April 1st, when we do the ribbon cutting for the actual the ceremony for the Hutman, although people can come and view it now. But if you come on that day, it's going to be free admission to the museum. So if we do an event like that, we usually waive the admission fee.
Very good,
That
thanks.
helps. You're welcome.
Are the Hutmans insulated?
No, nope. No, we tried to keep it as true to the original as possible. We have, there's no, I think we're going to put a clear coat stain on the outside of it just to preserve it for us for time, since that was not done then, but they were meant to be torn down. So we have done a little whitewashing on the inside just to preserve some of that, but not done any staining to the outside yet.
How many people lived in the Hutmans at any time, at any given time?
You mean in one particular Hutman?
Well, no, in all of the Hutmans, in the black Hutmans.
Right. So I don't know that we have an exact number. Ray, do you know? Or a close to number? I know there were about 1,300 in the Happy Valley area.
Right. If you go to the K-25 History Museum, there is a replica of the Hutman, or a portion of it there. Excuse me. And there's a sign there near that display that tells the number of Hutmans in Happy Valley. I want to say, and Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I want to say it was 1,500.
Okay, thanks. I just didn't have a good feel for it.
Now, remember, that was all the construction workers, not just the blacks.
Mhm.
And also remember that the Hutman area you showed in the picture, the large image, was the Hutmans that were located in the what's now Woodland area, or where Arbery's and Panera Bread is and all this, that area there. And the way we locate that is in many of the images that show that also show what's now the NOAA facility, which was the health department actually during the Manhattan Project and for a number of years. But that original Manhattan Project structure is sometimes used to identify where those locations are, because it's in the image as well. I don't know how many hutments were there, but I do know that they were taken down. And when they were building the woodland area as it is today, and the blacks were moved from that area over to Gamble Valley, which is now known as Scarborough. And I can't help but say the reason it's known as Scarborough is because when they moved the Scarborough School out in the old community of Scarborough, they moved that school, not the building, the school, the people, moved it into a vacant school building in Gamble Valley. Arizona officer who was the principal brought the name of the school with her. And then the community adopted the same name that the school had brought over. And that's how Scarborough came to be the community name. Mike, you have any more insights into numbers of hutments or anything like that that you could help us?
Well,
Clarification?
one thing I thought of, Ray, it's not necessarily to do with the numbers, but when you were talking about Noah, another yard marker I use is the cemetery.
Yeah.
I guess it's on the other side of the road, the Gamble Cemetery. Of course, it was obviously there back then too. And I've always looked at it as though from it down towards, not all the way to Aubrey's, but heading that direction. And then, of course, right behind the Gamble Cemetery, you can sort of tell where the footprint of that community was.
Right.
And in that photo that Carla had, which I really liked that photo, the one that showed the community center, the sort of the more broad view. What's interesting is the structures, the buildings that are sort of facing us or sort of closest to us, that was also their shopping area. It was kind of sad in a way because there's some other photos that show the facades, the front storefronts. And when you look how primitive what they provided them for shopping was, it's, and evidently if they paid more there for tissue paper or, dish liquid or whatever, then they would pay in town. So they were sort of, trapped into owing their soul to the company store in a way, So
it's unfortunate they wouldn't let them shop in downtown.
Yeah.
No,
That was a really good presentation, Carl. I enjoyed that. I look forward to.
Thank
The
you.
hutment looks great. It's aging a little bit on the outside, so it looks more natural, like the real hutments. Every time I drive by, I went by yesterday or day before and went inside Saturday, and it looks really good inside now too. It's just kind of coming together. Every time I see it, it looks better.
Thank you. Yeah.
Has there been any attempt to get do you have family histories, either oral or written, from that time from the Black community?
Well, I know Ray and Don have had some oral history recorded before. We also have, I don't know if you've heard of the biscuit lady or not, but her granddaughter is Valeria Roberson, Valeria Steele, when she went to high school here. But she's a professor at Roane State, and I'm working with her right now on doing audio, kind of sharing what her mother and her grandmother went through living in the hutments. And we're going to be using that as a QR code possibly on our display so that everybody can hear it. And then also we're going to be working with Katie Watt at Explore Oak Ridge, and they have Katie the Calutron girl, a different Katie, Katie the Calutron girl she's an actress, and they have her going all over Oak Ridge. If you haven't seen these videos, they're really super neat. And so Katie the Calutron girl introduces visitors to Oak Ridge, to different historical sites in Oak Ridge. She's been to the museum once, and so we're planning on doing another one with the hutment, and then having her introduce a young Black woman that comes into the hutment and talks about her experience living there. So we've got that in the works, but yes, I'm very excited about that too.
That'll be great. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a neat idea. Katie the Calutron girl is a short video program, 3 minutes, and she is really good. In fact, Katie Watt and the Explore Oak Ridge have won an award for that program. So I think it's a really good idea to get her in that hutment and have her talk on video. and introduce a black lady. I really think that's great. Other questions for Carla? I can't let this go without mentioning that the museum is open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 10 to 2 on Thursday and Friday, 10 to 3 on Saturday. But she's trying to get it open on Wednesday and maybe even more. But the limiting factor is the number of volunteers who are willing to work there and to welcome the visitors as they come in. Now, you don't have to be a historian. You don't have to have all the answers to every question anybody might ask as they come in the door. You just need to have a smiling face and say, welcome to the museum, and take their money. And then
Sell a t-shirt.
yeah, excuse me. Sell a shirt or books or whatever you like. But the museum is self-guided. Now, it's good if Don Honeycutt's there. He will be glad to show you around, or anyone who's there that has the knowledge will be glad to help, and they will do that. But if you don't have anyone there other than a volunteer who just knows how to let the people in the door, then you will still have a good experience, because there are the museum is set up to be self-explanatory. Lots of good exhibits there.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to see that we're using the chat function, and we will try and monitor that. Thank you, Mike, for answering that question. The question was bathrooms, showers. These hutments did not have any of those facilities, no running water. There were restrooms or bathhouses that were located close by, and you could use them. That's the case for all of the hutments. It's also the case for the trailers, and many of they just used anything they could to provide enough sleeping space. And by the way, sometimes these hutments would be used by 2 shifts of people. You'd have 4 or 5 people sleeping there, and the other 4 or 5 would be working. And then when they came off work, they would swap out. Now, that wasn't the case in all cases, but I know in at least some cases they did. Any other questions for Carla?
Yes, were the families of the white workers in the hutments allowed to be together? I've heard that the black families were separated according to sex, but was that also true for the white workers?
No, that was true for the blacks only. It was not true for the whites, but I'm not sure that any hutments had families in them. The families would have gotten into houses, or at least I think that. Again, dormitories were there, men's and women's dormitories. So even the whites were separated at that point, but not families. Any families that came in, white families, they were provided housing, is my belief. Mike, can you enlighten any more on that? Unmute yourself, buddy.
On which part, right? Just the
whether or
housing
not there were any white families in hutments.
You know,
There could have been, but I don't know that.
Yeah, I've never read or seen any evidence. I mean, that's a good question, you know, but because typically it was a construction worker kind of thing, and so I guess it mostly was. A lot of times people were here and their spouse was just not here with them, or if they were, they might have been living in a ladies' dorm, or, you know, not necessarily. I guess those conditions weren't conducive to in the hutments for couples.
Not really. No, they were not intended for families. They were intended for single individuals.
But they did, when the prior to the Scarborough area being developed for families, I've just been told this recently, that the blacks would start, when they started being allowed to bring their children here.
Yes.
They would pull some hutments together. So they would like build some area between 2 hutments, because they weren't moving out of those hutments, partly because they didn't want to leave their community, right? So they wanted to keep, you saw how the gatherings were, they had their shopping there. They had everything that they could do in the city was there in that one area. They were hesitant about moving anywhere because they were afraid that they wouldn't get to move their whole living community with them. So it took a lot of work to get everybody moved, essentially, because they wanted to keep their shopping and their, all the church and everything together. So that was a big problem for
Yeah,
me.
you have to realize that was a tremendous issue that was being dealt with in 1946. Now, up until August of 1945, during the Manhattan Project, it was what we just described. There were no Black children allowed. There was no families allowed to live together. But beginning after the war ended, beginning in 46, they began to allow the families to come and to bring in the Black children, because they created a school over at the original location of Scarborough. Now, there was a schoolhouse over there, and it had been built back in the 20s or 30s, I think in the 20s. But at any rate, it was turned into the school for the Black children. And that's when they realized that by letting the families come in and bring the children in, they had to provide schools for them. So the timing is in 1946, those hutments began to be used for family housing. And then also during that time, they were preparing the Galmo Valley location that had homes in it. They were putting those Black families over there and building Woodland. So they moved that entire community over into Galmo Valley, at what's now known as Scarborough. So the answer to your question is no, not during the Manhattan Project, but after the Manhattan Project, the Black situation changed because they were allowing families to come in. And as Mike mentioned, it's feasible that some white families could have been placed in hutments. They would put them anywhere they could that they could find room for them. Remember, in August of 1945, there were 75,000 people living in the city of Oak Ridge. Not on any maps, fifth largest city in the state. Anything else for Carla? Thank you all so much for your participation. And if you have another question, please chime in. Okay. Carla, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay with us as long as you like, but you may very well have other things you want to do this morning. So
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you very much for coming.
Enjoy your class.
Thank you. All right, Mike, let's transition now to the Oak Ridge room in the Oak Ridge Public Library. And you might start by telling folks how many oral histories we actually have in the library, because there was a question about oral histories just a minute ago. And you might explain how many hundred we have, okay?
Okay. First, if you hear my dog barking in the background, he's not used to me being home this time of day. So I gave him something, but he's already lost interest in it anyway. Yeah, we've got over 800 oral histories, and they're on our website, on the library website. We have hard copies of them that actually you can check out at the library, probably closer to 900 actually. And if you can do keyword searches, so you can search by terms and see there are probably at least maybe 14 to 16, but well, more probably, of Black history related oral histories. And Carla had mentioned Katie Strickland. There's one, I think she may have more than one. And then her daughter, I believe, also has one. So they're really good. I've used them for years. When we were working on the K-25 museum, I used it a lot for that. Just schools, churches, any records of things that people happen to mention are word searchable. So, or one of the plants, if you want to know about K-25 or Y12 or whatever, it's a huge resource.
I might add that if you want to look at any of those oral histories, if you just go to the Oak Ridge Public Library website and just search for oral histories, it'll come right up. And it's the Oak Ridge Center for Oral History.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to then, when you get in it, you can search for any individual you want, or you can just scroll through the oral histories that are there. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, also they'll have transcripts and they'll have videos of most of the people. And it's kind of neat seeing the videos of some of the stories are, June Adamson's one of my favorite ones just because she's real serious about some of her stories, and she has such a rich history here, being a newspaper columnist, and she worked for Frances Gates, the lady that published the Oak Ridge Journal. She, knew Colonel Nichols, and so she's really opinionated in an interesting sort of way. But a lot of them, a lot of those people, they really kind of like Ed Westcott's photos, their stories tell the history of Oak Ridge. And of course they go on forward into the 50s and 60s. And as far as quick library news, of course, we're remodeling. If you haven't been in a while, it's changed a lot. We have a new front desk, which is totally different. The other front desk had been there in that same spot for about 60 years. So it really changes the look of it. And our restrooms are being remodeled, which is a great thing when they're finished, but there's porta potties outside right now. You can go to the Civic Center, which is not too far of a walk. They're coming along though. They've been working on those every day since I've been there in the last couple of weeks. Got some new carpet. Of course, the Oak Ridge room itself has expanded by about 5 times. They've glassed it in, and there's also a conference room right next to me there that's been glassed in that you can use on an as-needed basis, or you can reserve it. It's just a little, and it's somewhat soundproof as far as giving you some privacy if you want to have a meeting. Or we've had people take a college. My daughter's actually going down there and taking a college class online, so she can kind of get out of the house. And she has a barking dog like I do too. Now to take her some of her online classes. Clubs and organizations and even job interviews, people have been reserving it. It's actually had a lot of activity. And we've got a lot of events coming up in March and April. We've got a, it's read, edit, share that we had one in the spring, and I believe it's actually February 25th on a Saturday. I participated in the other 2, and basically Aaron Smith, who was our poet laureate of Oak Ridge, first poet laureate of Oak Ridge, she runs the show, and it's fun. It's just kind of a writer's workshop. You can write anything, and they were mostly poets there, and they I'm not necessarily a poet. I attempted a couple of poems, but I had I had a fiction piece that I shared, and I had an Oak Ridge related piece that I shared, and it was really the critiques were really good and really fun. It was encouraging. So they got that coming up, and we've also got I'm doing I guess my next one's March 15th. I've got a 6 Degrees of Oak Ridge thing, celebrity ties to Oak Ridge, singers, actors, producers. It's got the teaser, Gore Verbinski, born here, lived here till he was 3 or 4. He was the director of the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. His father, Victor, was a scientist at ORICL, stuff like that. And it'll just tie Oak Ridgers that have been successful in entertainment. I've done one of those. It's really fun, kind of a thing. Maybe I'll get more technical with my next one, but well, 6 Degrees of Scientist or something. But and then William Gwynn, one of our reference librarians, has a lot of gardening things coming up. We did one last week that was real well attended. He'll do, springtime now, time for planting, and he has the UT Extension people come out and do things. He's got 3 or 4 of those lined up basically each month. I think there's one in March and one in he may stagger one and do one in June. He kind of does seed saving and preservation, food preserving, as well as just getting your garden ready before. And those have gone really well. Virginia Spence, the other reference person, does a series of tech classes, and she's got a neat thing going now on Thursdays. It's the first and third Thursday. It's a drop-in class. If you have a laptop or an iPhone or something that you're having trouble with, or some application that you want to learn, you can come in there and she'll help you with it. She's very patient. she's been very patient with me with a lot of things I've worked on. Even before I was at the library, Virginia has always been a patient. So she's really natural with a foreign device, some sort of new iPad you've gotten and you're a little unsure about it. She can help you with that. And I guess, and in June, I've got an Oracle class with a little tour of Jackson Square. It's just picture it, Oak Ridge, 1945. I just kind of go through and tell you which stores were there in 45 and who some of the people that worked there in those stores were, and just what it was like in 45. So that's kind of an extension of the library. I've been doing these Oracle classes as outreach for the library. And I guess unless there's any questions, you can check our website. We've got several other events I'm probably missing. They kind of got it packed in here in April, May, and June with lots of different things happening.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any questions you have of Mike about the Oak Ridge Room or any of the things he mentioned? Going once. Okay. Mike, we sure do appreciate you being with us today, and
Yeah,
you're
thanks for
welcome
having
to
me.
stay as long as you like, or if you have other things you need to do, it's understandable. And I really do appreciate you being active on the chat with me.
Oh
this
yeah, no,
morning.
thanks for
So,
having me, Ray.
question.
And come to the Oak Ridge Room, everybody, and take a look at it. There's all sorts of stuff hidden away in there. I get some unusual donations that are really interesting. And I love having people come in that haven't been before or that just want to dig into some obscure thing that they want to know more about.
And I might also add that when he mentioned the expansion of the Oak Ridge Room, you can't comprehend that without going down there and seeing it. The entire west end of, well, essentially the entire west end of the library is now the Oak Ridge Room. The large glass walls and glass doors that isolate that portion or insulate it a little bit, where you do have the kind of privacy that you need to talk about the history. And he's got tables in there. He's got places that you can take things out and spread them out and look. And again, it's just a tremendous resource that he has there as far as archives and a collection of several artifacts that he's got are also there available. So make use of the Oak Ridge Room. Any questions for Mike before we let him go?
Can you check out or can you listen to any of the oral histories online, or do you have to have a card to get to them?
You can actually get there and listen to them without a card. Yeah, sure can.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm in Indiana. I can't
Okay,
get there.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, just
well,
go to the
glad to
website.
have you with us from Indiana, but you can do it online. And
Okay, good.
seriously, just do a Google search for the Oak Ridge Public Library and it'll get you there.
Okay,
I could probably put a link up on the
well, I can get there.
Mike,
I'm a
why don't you
librarian,
do
so
that
I'll
before
find
you
it.
leave? Before you leave, put a link up on the chat box
Okay.
that gets them to the oral histories.
Okay.
It's easier for you to do it probably than for me. And if you'll put that up there, that'll be great.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, he'll have it up in just a moment. Any other questions or thoughts about the Oak Ridge Library before we move on? I can tell by looking at Mike that he's working hard on putting that up for you. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I think I can still watch the chat while that's happening. I can. All right. Now we've had Mike, and again, I appreciate that. I want to tell you about some things that are coming up in the immediate future that that I'd like to share with you. This coming Thursday at 11 o'clock in the Doubletree is a luncheon for the Scarborough 85 Monument Committee. And the speaker is Dr. Harold Middlebrook. Now, I must warn you that this event has already, it is very close to being sold out. So if you are interested in going and just haven't heard about it, there's a link, but if the way to get there is just go to Eventbrite and search for Scarborough 85. It'll bring up that event. And I just want you to be aware of that, but also know that I think their limit is 240 people, and I think they were at 230 something last night. So it may be sold out. Then on Thursday, March the 9th, we have the second portion of the Roots of America program that's being sponsored by ORICL and by the Oak Ridge Breakfast Rotary Club. The first event was at the Y12 Zach Wamp Auditorium at New Hope, and we had a large number of people there, and it was about the history of African American music. Really, really good program. This particular program, the second one in the series, is about the Cherokees' desire to change the name of Clingman's Dome. And I don't have a clue how to pronounce that, Kuwohi, but that's what they're going to be explaining to us, the reason for it and why they want to change it, change the name of the mountain. So that will be on March the 9th. It'll be at the Pollard Conference Center auditorium. Admission is free. I forgot to put the time down. It's in the evening though. I think it starts at 5:30. Yes, I believe that's correct. There's a reception, small light refreshments at 5 o'clock, and then the event starts at 5:30 at the ORIU Pollard Technology Conference Center auditorium. And then on March the 21st, we've got the Lunch for Literacy program. And again, tickets are available on Eventbrite. This is not sold out, so you can still get tickets there for sure. It's just now going on sale. And the speaker will be Kim Michelle Richardson. Her stories that she's written are about the bookwoman of Troublesome Creek and the bookwoman's daughter. This is Troublesome Creek is an area in Kentucky. She lives in Kentucky. And interestingly enough, have you ever heard of the blue-skinned people? Ever heard of that? People whose skin is actually blue. Those folks were in this area, and it was a disorder, a genetic disorder that actually caused their skin to have a blue cast to it. And it's a very strange phenomenon, but she includes some of that information in this book. It's a fiction book about the bookwoman based on actual character. So it's historical fiction. And she'll be speaking to us in the Oak Ridge High School auditorium. She'll be on Zoom, but there will be a lunch available for a box lunch to take away, and everyone can participate in the auditorium, or if you choose, you can actually participate in a Zoom meeting format. So that's March the 21st. Then the next Roots of America program is on April the 20th, Thursday again. And this one will be talking about hate crimes in America. And there will be FBI agent Martha Manuel who'll be speaking. And it again will be held in the Pollard Technology Conference Center of ORIU. Admission is free. 5 in the afternoon for the reception, 5:30 for the event on Thursday, April the 20th. And then the final one is on Thursday, May the 23rd, and it's a presentation by former Mayor Madeline Rohera, I think, and Claudia Calvero, Patricia Robelio. Why don't these people name them Smith? That's so much easier to say. I ought not have said that. At any rate, it'll be at the Pollard Auditorium, free, and 5 o'clock on May the 23rd.
May the 23rd is a Tuesday.
Ah, thank you so much for saying that. And I apologize. Did I miss it on the other one too?
Oh, the other ones, I already had these in my calendar. That's
Yeah,
how I
good
know.
Good for you. I appreciate that. Uh, well, I'm so confused now that I'll have to straighten it out at the next class. I was thinking they were on Thursdays, but I could be wrong. Let me clarify that for you at the next class. I do apologize for mixing the dates up. April the 20th is on a Thursday. So at any rate, I'll clear that up by next time. Okay. Let's see what I've got. I have another, just a few things that I want to share with you. Mike has put the link up to the library collection for the oral histories. And Vicki, thank you for helping me on the Thursdays. All the routes are on Thursdays except the last one, which is on a Tuesday. So now I have it right on Tuesday, May the 23rd. Thank you for helping me with that. Now back to my little lighthearted comment. Oh, wait a minute. Any additional information on April bus tours? Yes. The tours are to begin, I believe, on April the 11th. And I think everything is moving forward with that. Let me look at my calendar. That's a Tuesday. Look online for AMSI and they will give you the dates as promptly as they have it, I'm sure. And let's see if they have anything up there yet. Let's see, how do I learn about the bus tours? Closed for the season, we anticipate opening. So they do not have anything up that will help us at this point. Sorry about that. I will know by next week the exact date, but I believe it's April the 11th. Okay. Big Ed's has been recognized as the best pizza in Tennessee by Reader's Digest. I just think that's neat as it can be. I love Big Ed's pizza. The last time Mark Watson made a presentation to the Rotary Club, in the middle of his presentation, he mentioned this Emory Road Bridge. And it was, as you recall, first road going to the west, cut and cleared in 1787. And this rock pillar bridge was added. And this bridge is right beside the Oak Ridge History Museum, between there and the high school. And we are working with the city, we being the Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation Association, working with the city to get this bridge identified in a park status in some way to do the repair that will bring this retainer wall back up and set it where it needs to go under the bridge and clean the area up and maintain it as a part of the city park system. And Mark did mention that in the presentation. I've not had any specific conversation with him lately about it. I did talk to him a good bit ago, and we brought some of the city staff down and shown them the bridge. I've had the state historic preservation officer that has been there, and we're all in agreement that the bridge needs to have the recognition and the maintenance required to keep it up. And I'm hoping that we're on the right track to get that done. It seems like we've got the attention of the city now, and they understand the importance of the artifact. So I'm pleased by that. Just wanted to share that with you. Carla mentioned the hutment. This is some pictures that I actually made them for Katie Watt, who's going to be using them in a promotion on the Explore Oak Ridge website to promote the hutment. And I'm so delighted that Katie the Cayatron girl is going to be there. And again, to get the experience of Katie the Cayatron girl, Explore Oak Ridge. Is where to go. And once you get there, what you're going to find is Katie the Cayatron girl. That's her. And she's on YouTube. And I won't show you all of it, but I want you to get a hint of it.
Today, we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, history. Shh. You hear that? The walls are talking. If the walls are talking, that means we can be.
All right, I'm not going to take up any more time with that, but I wanted you to see that and to appreciate that award-winning little film series that we have out of Explore Oak Ridge. And this is actually the hutment interior, as you see at the Oak Ridge History Museum. I took another place in Oak Ridge that I encourage you to go is the Scarborough Community Center. It's right across the street from the Oak Ridge preschool program and located in Scarborough, and they have an excellent display area of the Black history in Oak Ridge. It's right off of the gym. You just go into the front door and bear to your right into the gym, and then just to the right of the gym basketball court is the display walls, two of them that run down and have just loads of information about African American history. So I encourage you to go there. Just out of curiosity, I know you've seen this out on the west end of town, the Oak Ridge Enhanced Technology and Training Center. Just wanted to tell you that they had the ribbon cutting for that some weeks ago, and it is a emergency response training center for the that Y12 is putting on to train people who are first responders who might be going into areas that have radiation involvement, and they might need to know more about how to protect themselves or to be able to recognize what it is that they're dealing with when they go into these areas. Just a matter of interest I wanted to share with you. These are the Cayatrons that are located in building 9731. There's work going on as we speak to make these Cayatrons more available to the public. Not too many weeks ago, or months ago now, the first site sign for the Manhattan Project National Historical Park, other than the one that's up at the Children's Museum at their visitor center. This sign was erected at the building 9731 location in Y12. And they are presently putting bathrooms in on the top, the ground level floor. Now, there's a basement, and through the back, you can get into the basement. And that had restrooms already in the basement of the building. They are refurbishing those and bringing them up to code and installing new bathrooms up on the main floor, again, the ground floor from the entrance on the front. And I'm expecting that we will be able to have this available to the public in some fashion, bus tours, sometime later this year. I don't have a date on that. They have been working on it for some time. I must tell you that they were so gracious when we had the Medal of Honor recipients that had their convention in Knoxville. They stopped the renovation activities and set up chairs in the building, made it a display area that was just superb. And I was able to bring the Medal of Honor tours through there at that time. And then a month later, we had a Kyle Carpenter, who was the youngest Medal of Honor recipient, came to Oak Ridge for a personal tour, and we gave him the tour, took him through Building 9731 again, even while the construction was going on. And he did a podcast that I'm proud to tell you that he included me on his podcast, and then he participated on Keith McDaniel and my program that we run every other Saturday, a video cast called Hidden History Stories of the Secret City. And all of this is on YouTube. You can find it just by Googling Kyle Carpenter or by Googling Hidden History Stories of the Secret City. They'll come up and you can find them. They're also on Facebook. But I'm hoping to see 9731 have better access in the not too distant future. And about AMSI, I just put this here to remind me to tell you that the bus tours will be starting up in April. This is an interesting little logo that the Scarborough 85, the group or the committees that are promoting the idea of putting monuments up to recognize this desegregation, first desegregation of public schools in the Southeast in 1955. And they use this logo, and Sankofa. If you're interested in it, again, Google that word, you can find it. What it talks about is looking back into your past, but planting seeds for the future. And they're using that as their logo. I've already mentioned that. This is one of the historical markers, the most recent one that we've installed in Oak Ridge. It's over near the Methodist Medical Center, where the Oak Ridge Institute of Nuclear Studies was actually located from 1950 to 1974. And I'm hoping that we'll get a public unveiling of that sign before too long. But it's an example of the historical markers from the Tennessee State Historical Commission, which I'm proud to be a person representing East Tennessee on that commission as a commissioner. And we have several signs around the city, a couple that I've replaced because they were lost or stolen. Well, they were stolen, and they're now back up. The one for the city of Oak Ridge that's located out by the checking station on the turnpike had been missing for years, and we replaced it. And then this is the most recent one. Another thing that I'll challenge you with is the wayside markers being placed by the Manhattan Project National Historical Park and the Explore Oak Ridge. These are located around town. There are about 20 of them. or 25. They're still adding them. And I understand from the Park Service, and by the way, we're going to have the park ranger on our next program next Monday. And I'm sure he will talk to you about these markers, but I wanted you to know about them so that you might be able to find some of them or be able to ask him questions about them next week. But I understand, and I'm sure he'll announce this, I understand that there's a brochure out now that has all of them listed, and you can find them by going and using that brochure. Now, I only have just a few more minutes left. I want to be sure I give you plenty of time for any questions that you might have before we wrap up. So let me stop sharing my screen here. These are just examples of other of those wayside markers. This one for the Chapel on the Hill, and the one on the left is for the guest house. But you can find these all around town. So I only have about 3 minutes left. Let me stop and let you ask any questions that you'd like of me before we wrap up. So please just unmute yourself and ask away.
Ray, where do you get the brochures?
The brochures are available at the Park Service Visitor Center at the Children's Museum.
Okay, thank you.
If they've got them ready. I'm not sure if they're ready yet. I apologize. I just know that they're being done, and Ian will tell us next week if they're finished and where you can get them for sure. But I'm confident that they'll be there. And also Explore Oak Ridge at the Chamber of Commerce. I'm confident they'll have
about the signs up. It's a one-page little, maybe 8x3 thing, but it lists all the addresses for everyone. Also, the map at the visitor center has little stars on it showing you where they're located.
So when you said the visitor center, you're talking about the Explore Oak Ridge at the Chamber of Commerce, right?
Up at the Children's Museum at the Parks Visitor Center.
Okay, at the National Park, Manhattan Project National Historical Park Visitor Center, which is located in the main lobby of the Children's Museum up on West Outer Drive. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Other comments or questions?
I did want to say that Calutron girl Ruth Huddleston is currently very, very sick, and she and the family request prayer.
Yes, thank you for that. Her son is keeping me informed about her situation, and I appreciate it, but she's 97, I believe.
I think she's 98 now.
98 now, okay. But she is not doing well. She has, they've actually diagnosed multiple myeloma in her blood, and she's in hospice care now. So the family is really going through a hard time. Ruth was just such a jewel for me for years. She was the last of the Calutron girls that was so capable of being able to be interviewed. She's the one that her granddaughter was doing a project for school on the history of Oak Ridge, and she was at her grandmother's house, at Ruth's house. And Ruth said, "What are you working on?" And she told them Oak Ridge, and she said, "Well, I can help you with that. I used to work there." Now that's the first time their family even knew that she was a Calutron girl in Oak Ridge. And from that, the Japanese came over and wanted to do a documentary film on one anniversary of the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima. And I introduced them to Ruth, and they changed the direction of their documentary entirely and made it about Ruth through her granddaughter's perception of her grandmother working on the bomb. Turned out to be a neat little documentary. And Chris Wallace on the book Countdown to 1945, which was just published within the last couple of years, came down and interviewed Ruth for that book. And he also enlarged the portion of his book to a total chapter as opposed to just a short paragraph. So I love Ruth. She's been a wonderful person, but she's really struggling now. So it's appropriate to pray for her and for her family.
What did you say her last name was?
Huddleston.
Huddleston, thank you.
Huddleston. And she has oral histories in the oral history archives at the library. And there are videos out on YouTube. I've got a couple of them out there. So if you Google her name, you will get to see Ruth talking
Okay,
about
thank
her
you.
experiences, you bet. Anything else before we wrap up? Well, thank you so much for being with me, and we will do this again next Monday and have our third session then. Thank you so very much for being.
Thanks, Ray.
All right.
Thank you, Ray. Very rich information today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and see you next week.